Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Yeah, this was a really good turnout, particularly for a first-time event, so we're really grateful for everyone that came and showed their support. Hopefully we can do something like this again.
Yeah. Yes.
And thanks to Ann for going ahead and moderating this for us on the fly. She did that. So thank you very much. You may know her on TikTok as the book bitch, right? That's her handle, so be sure to follow her.
He calls me that, I asked him.
There's the camera. But yeah, I guess we get whenever you want, we can start.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, hi everyone, thank you so much for coming. My name is Amnesty and I'm here to interrogate this panel of extreme horror authors. I'll be asking them questions, and in between each one, if you guys have follow-ups, raise your hand and we'll call on you. So to get started, would you guys introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Christopher Triana. Probably best know me as the author of Come See the Riverman. That's it.
Aaron Beauregard, I'm the author of Playground. Probably know me for that.
My name is Brandon Perez Sanchez. I have my first book here that I co-wrote there. It's a screenplay there and helped me adapt into a novel format. I also write screenplays too that are horror based. So.
And you make movies.
Make movies.
Don't forget to fucking tell
Make
people
movies
that
too.
He has a movie, I'm sure.
It's a good movie.
Oh, thank you.
I'm John Lynch. I'm most known for my book, The Warrior Retreat.
All right, I guess we'll dive right into it then. For people interested in writing genre fiction like extreme horror, where do they start and where did each of you start?
Are we going?
Yeah, just
Okay. Start by reading. That's the best way to start writing anything, is to read the genre. And if you're looking to submit to publishers, read books that they've published. Don't just blindly submit. Know what they're looking for. There's several ways to approach it. I mean, you could just look at some of the more popular titles in the genre. You could get Playground, or you could get you could get something that was kind of one of the beginning books. You could go backwards and get some books by Rex Miller and John Skiff and people like that. But yeah, I think that's a good way to enter the genre. It's just by reading it, and if you want to really write it, it's just practice, 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 and it's also, I think it's important to educate yourself on the genre. You're not just reading the books, but trying to see some of the more extreme films that are out there. Necromantic and Martyrs and movies like that.
Yeah, and kind of since Chris was talking a little bit about, a gateway to it, I'll talk a little bit about our origins, because Chris has been doing this. He's definitely the veteran of the panel. I know you started, over 10 years ago, right? And you was writing. This is back when you didn't really have the power to sort of do what we're fortunate enough to do and put our own books out there and build our own brands. You kind of had to have somebody else invest in you at that point. You had to submit to publishers, and it's very it's based on someone else's opinion. Whereas now it's like, if this is what you want to do, you can just do it. You know what I mean? You don't have to wait for anybody to give you the okay, and you're in full control. Now there is a learning curve with that though too, and we'll probably talk about that in some of the other questions coming up. But yeah, to answer the question of sort of where I started, I've only been publishing really for 6 years. And I've been publishing full-time now for 3 years, so it just shows you the process can accelerate if you really truly desire it and you're passionate about it. Anything is really possible with that.
I have nothing to add to that. I mean, that kind of covered it all.
And I think just to reiterate what they said, always be writing and always be reading. You do if you want to write extreme horror and splatterpunk, you do need to have a knowledge of the genre. So you want to read the older stuff that came before, but you do also, if you're trying to write specifically that, you kind of have to know what people are looking for now as well, because splatterpunk, when it started, is not the same thing as splatterpunk now. It's different. I think now it goes a lot harder in the gross out and the splatter. So you need to know where it came from, and you need to know where it's going to, and also be well read in other genres too. Because as a writer, that's going to only improve you. Don't just only read exclusively horror, extreme horror, splatter film. You need to know other genres as well.
Yeah, and to add to that, it's important to read genres, even ones if you want to be a writer. I'm saying, if you just want to read books, read what you want to read. But if you want to be a writer, it's good to expand your horizons that way, and to read books that you wouldn't normally read or even want to write, just to see the kind of writing that goes towards a particular audience, like people that want something romantic or something. Read a romance novel, because you may end up wanting to write an extreme horror story that has a romantic twist to it. You maybe want to do a more extreme natural born killers or something like that. So it's good to expand your horizons with that. And also to know that there's more to splatterpunk or extreme horror than just blood and guts. Anyone can just write something disgusting, and then it just becomes, it's like a grosser than gross joke, like, from when we were kids. So you want to have story, you want to have characters, there's more to it. Don't think that it's just, hey, I came up with a story where some guy likes to eat vomit. It's like, oh, great. But that's not a story in and of itself, that's just something gross. So it's got to be more than that.
All right, and for our next question, has there ever been a point in your lives that you were ready to throw in the towel in your writing career? And if so, what kept you from doing so?
Absolutely not, in my case. I've been,
Okay, next question.
I've been, well, so a lot of writers have, though. That's a good question. But for me, it's, I started writing short stories when I was a child, like by the time I was 7 or 8. I noticed I still have them, little composition books where I wrote stories, and even then they were about monsters. And then, like, once I was a teenager, I decided that's really what I wanted to do, is I wanted to become a writer, a horror writer specifically. And, Aaron was talking about how things have changed over the years. I started, submitting to publishers when I was, like 19, 20 years old. This is back when you actually had to print out the manuscript and mail it to them. There was none of this email submissions or anything. So that's how old I am to this. Thank you. I appreciate it. I could feel it. I could feel it in my knees. I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, well, no, you were saying about the submission process being a lot more complicated than that.
Oh, yeah. Things have just changed a lot. But I was going to say something else and I forgot what it was. Oh, that's what it was. Even if I had never had any success, I would still be writing stories because it's something I love to do. It's something I'm very passionate about. The fact that other people have been able to share these stories with me, like that other people enjoy them, is fantastic. It's everything I've ever wanted. So thanks to everyone who brings it.
Yeah, and as far as I've never had, like you guys say, there's never been a point where I was like, oh, I'm gonna quit doing this, because I never really realized I was doing it. I guess even though I was writing short stories as a kid, there were long periods where I would be doing other creative shit, but not necessarily writing, and not necessarily ever thinking oh yeah, you're gonna write books and that's what you do for a living. That never truly crossed my mind until maybe 7 years ago, and the thought of doing it for a living was very detached to sort of oh yeah, I'll climb Mount Everest one day, sure, but I feel like I was not going to fail or throw in the towel because it didn't so much matter to me if people read the books. I just wanted to write them. Once I held that first book in my hand, I just knew that this is what I was going to do. Whether it was successful or not, I would just do it on the side. So if you approach it with that mentality, you cannot fail. You can just create, even if people aren't paying attention as much as you'd like them to. With the internet and everything, you never know when that moment might come for you. But if you're not dependent on that, you can never fail. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, so in my case, I've never really thrown this whole moment. So I was writing screenplays and stuff. It's really, really hard to get a screenplay sold, especially with extreme horror. Especially nowadays too. I feel like now they want to tone down the gore, the sex, everything, which is really frustrating. So we're trying to do extreme horror. But so the reason I started collaborating with Aaron, we were having this conversation. He's like, you might as well try to turn into a novella or a novel. A lot of times, screenwriters have a better chance of getting their screenplays made into a movie via like a novella format. So making that transition from screenplay writing into this has been awesome. And that's way you can monetize it too, because the whole submission process for a screenplay is so archaic and nightmarish. And like a lot of like indie studios don't really buy screenplays. A lot of them just want to make their own films, and they don't have the money to throw around and produce these things. So it's a nice little gear shift. So I've converted a second screenplay of mine into novella format, and then I'm probably going to just keep doing novels instead of screenplays. I still write screenplays here and there, but it's something we'll make ourselves. And the movies we make are pretty graphic and fun.
Yeah, dude,
It's
like,
a world.
to your point, I had written several screenplays before I finished any book, but then I realized, like, I can't do shit with these if no one cares about them, you know what I mean? And so, like, when I saw, he's already making movies, and he had certain screenplays that, like, the book that we collaborated on, it's not feasible unless a big studio took this on, you know what I mean? Like, it's not something you can do on the indie level. So yeah, that was cool that you decided to go on that path.
Unless we pirate like one of the tall ships in Boston. Or
Yeah, we would need a big boat. Some weirdos.
So for me, I've never really had a moment where I wanted to like call it quick to pack it in. But I have had lengthy periods of time where I was writing in the past. Whether it was a kid, like when I was younger, I would write like little blog posts on Angel Fire and like Lycos and those things. I would do that, and I would write some horror stuff. And then when I got home from the Marine Corps, I tried writing like 10 years ago, and I wasn't really making any headway with it, and then I kind of ran out of time. So there's been points of my life where it's fallen by the wayside because I didn't feel like I had the time, and I was just a little bit down on it. But it always comes back. I think it's something you really can't. It's like Aaron said, you can't fail at it if you're not setting yourself up to fail at it. And it's just if you want to do it, it's just something that you'll do, and you really you can't fail unless you let yourself. So for me, it was just kind of like finding what I wanted to write about. And sometimes it pivots. When I was a kid, like I said, when it was horror stuff or like writing about like Dragon Ball Z characters when I was in like middle school, and then like going back to horror again as an adult and staying there. But yeah, you just got to keep writing past points like that.
Alrighty, historically, splatterpunk and extreme horror authors are known for churning out some of the most disturbing and gruesome work. Is there a line you've personally drawn as an author when writing? If so, what is that line you prefer not to cross?
Well, I only will go to a certain extreme if the story really calls for it. I don't come up with just some horrible thing and then try to create a story around it. I want it to be part of the main story. Certain things that I stay away from is I don't want to do anything that's just gratuitous, over the top, like any. Like I'm never going to write a detailed rape scene. I'm never going to write, some long thing about puppies being tortured or something like that. Because to me, that's just shock for the sake of shock. You can have a story where there's, rape or an animal gets killed, and you can tell the reader that without having to go into this gratuitous detail. However, when it comes to certain blood and guts and carnage, I enjoy writing that. I think that's fun. So if I can, I grew up watching the 80s slasher movies and loving the creative kills and being like, oh, what's Jason going to do next? Because it's always some new crazy batshit thing. So if I can do that, I enjoy that. And the great thing with extreme horror, with the books, is you can go as far as you want to. There's not one particular line, but usually I'll stay away from any animal abuse and certainly any like baby stuff or anything. That's just me though.
That's not me. Puppies, elephants, babies, and all. But here's the thing. Chris hates it. But here's the thing though. Like you said, I agree with this point. It's like, I'm not sitting there. There has to be a purpose to it. You know what I mean? It can't just be 60 pages of the worst shit you ever heard. You know what I mean? Like, it just gets boring. That's the thing, you have a plot, right? And then you have characters that should be evolving through this plot. And then you have these gross or outrageous moments speckled, but they make sense and connect to the plot. They cannot be detached, or they become boring and the reader is smart. You guys are going to tell us this is irrelevant. You know what I mean? It's pointless to this. So I do agree with you there. While I may write some things, that go further than some of the things you do, I still have, I don't want to say there's a line so much as to what happened, but there's certain things you can show off screen too, like that makes more sense,
Right.
But I feel like I might go a little further with that stuff.
Well, it depends on my book, though. Like if you read Body Art or Full Brutal by me, those books are extremely graphic and disgusting and crazy. But some of my other stuff, I will go more towards wanting to disturb the reader rather than shock or gross them out. I want to create a slowly building sense of dread. And my book, Constantly the Riverman, is like that, and it's by far my most popular. So I like going with that kind of theme. I want to get under people's skin slowly rather than being like, hey, look, here's a puppy, and I smash his head in, So there's different angles with that, and that's where you get into the dividing line between what is splatterpunk and what is extreme horror. And people go back and forth as to me, splatterpunk is the blood and guts and the carnage and the poop and everything else. And then extreme horror is the stuff that's just really psychologically disturbing and unsettling and stays with you longer than the immediate shock value. It's kind of like taking a jump scare and comparing that to like a slow burn horror story,
So let me ask you this though, because the two books you mentioned, those are earlier in your career, whereas do you feel like you've evolved at all, and maybe that's just part of your evolution, and that's why the crazier shit was early on?
I still do some of the crazy shit, like with the obituaries when we do those. Those are pretty gory and disgusting. But no, I do think that I don't want to say evolved because I don't think that that I'm all better than that now. It's not that. It's just that I've done that a lot. I already wrote Body Art, Full Brutal, Talks about all these extreme splatter books. And I don't want to just be repeating myself. I want to challenge myself to write newer, different things.
Where's the line?
It's a tricky question because there's certain lines I won't cross, but I also question why sometimes it's odd to me that rape and child murder are worse than murder itself. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird. It's all bad. So where is that the moral compass outline of why is it worse? Why is it not worse? These are lines I personally probably wouldn't cross in my work, but I do sometimes question it. It's just funny, and it's weird. if you're jumping into this genre, especially splatterpunk, you're gonna come across this stuff. So I'm always baffled when people are like, "Oh my god, this is gross," and I'm gonna try to cancel this person. It's you're reading fucking splatterpunk. But I don't know what to tell you. It's just kind of odd to me. But yeah, it's weird. I think, I don't know. It's a thing that people need to think about themselves and question.
For me, I haven't been publishing that long, only a little over a year now. I personally don't feel like I have a line as long as it makes sense in the context of the story. Like they had said, I'm not going to throw it in there just for the sake of it, but I will go there if the story calls for it to go there. And I'll go as far as it needs to be. Whatever that line is, I would say that I probably don't have a line as long as it's going to make sense in the story.
Kind of a follow-up. In an age of hypersensitivity, trigger warnings and cancellation, extreme horror seems like something that would be difficult to promote. How do you go about getting your name out there and avoiding the pitfalls of censorship?
Yeah, that can be tough. Particularly with the popularity of book talk and Instagram, Bookstagram, I guess it's called, because they do limit content, what you can show. If you have a book cover that's really explicit, and they limit what you can show. But now they even limit what you can say. You have to say unalive instead of killed on TikTok, which is fucking retarded. To not even be able to say serial killer, really? That's going to hurt someone to hear that? Get the fuck out of here.
Tell us how you really feel.
Oh, God. I don't even like people saying that. It's I do tell you how I really feel. Are you fucking listening? Anyway, before I rant, But yeah, there are a lot of different avenues, and if you are a writer, I don't care how much you hate social media, you have to be on it. Why wouldn't you use it? If these are avenues for you to reach more people, use them. Even if you hate it, even if you think it's stupid, do it anyway. But then you do shows like this, and you engage with the community, the Facebook groups like Books of Horror and stuff like that. Even if you're not even if you're not much of a name yet, just being involved in the community really helps you a lot. You can see what other people are enjoying. Not saying you have to copy whatever is the most popular thing, but you can see what the market calls for. And we are living in a very overly hypersensitive time. But you're not going to be able to please everyone. There's always going to be someone who doesn't like what you wrote, is mad at you, doesn't like you for it, and you know what, fuck them. It doesn't matter. If they don't like it, they won't read it. You're doing it for the people who want to read it, and you're doing it for yourself. Write the kind of books that you would want to read.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like you said, there is like this weird internet language now. If you can learn it, on a live, whatever these words are, to avoid certain things, it will help you gain traction, I suppose, like in your marketing. Because like you said, it's the internet. That's your marketing, essentially. Word of mouth is only going to get you so far. It's good too, don't get me wrong. And like these in-person events are great, word of mouth is great, but if you came and attended this to potentially think about doing this for a living, maybe, the internet, I wasn't on it for my first 4 books. I sold nothing. Shocking, right? But then I finally forced myself to get on it, and from there, you can look to groups. There's a great group, Books of Horror, right, on Facebook. There's the communities on TikTok and Instagram. So yeah, I think you got to use all those avenues. But if you're writing this type of content, the good thing is we do have controversy on our side. So, you know what I mean? You can actually use that as an asset. Like in my case, that's an asset to me. And you can very, very carefully lean into it just enough to where you don't look like an asshole. You know what I mean? But you can use it. Like I had a big controversy with my Playground book. People were saying, oh, we can't get past this page. People were quitting, right? So, and there was a lot of heat for that. So like, if you're doing this, I should also state like, you gotta have thick skin because people are gonna tell you that you should be dead, that you should do what's on my shirt, all that. You're gonna hear that stuff. Like, if you're in this genre and you have any kind of success, prepare yourself for it. So I would just say,
They love me. They just hate you.
yeah, no, they do not like me. But I have a lot of people who like me too, and I appreciate that. But I'm just trying to say, like, I guess that, like, with Playground, I kind of leaned into it a little with the next book, being like, oh yeah, if you thought this page was bad, get ready for this page in this book. You know what I mean? So like, you can kind of like use that as a momentum, and just don't let it bother you, because the people are always going to say mean and terrible things because
It's the internet.
Yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, it's tricky. But there are ways to do it successfully. You just got to keep trying. Different things too. I think different things can be helpful. But
well, it's like you said too, like especially for like if you're self-published, like your tool is the internet. You do have to play the game. And one thing I've learned is like you can't feed the trolls. Like our last 2 movies, it's very like pro-queer trans messages in the films and they're graphic, but then you get reviews that are like saying the opposite. And it's like, well, you're a fucking idiot. You want to go and like eviscerate these people, but you can't. I think also too, it's hard to like you have to like chill because like I think the epitome of privilege is like in the art world. It's like you can close a book, you can shut off a movie, you can't move the fuck out of Palestine, you can't fucking be trans in certain states in the United States. Like so, it's like you're coming at artists and authors and like if that's your big to-do of the day, then you have it pretty fucking good. Yeah. So it's like frustrating, like you see these comments saying this shit, and it's like, oh my god, you're evil. But yeah, you just have to kind of just nod and smile. Like, you handle it really well. Like you have to just kind of like with the comments be like, oh, thanks for checking it out. Sorry, it's not for you. But it's full of kindness kind of thing. But I recommend that. We had some critiques in our last video that were like really ignorant, and it was like we kind of snapped and the crew kind of went off these people. And for some reason, you're not allowed to critique the critics, and so that came back and bit us in the ass a little bit, and we had to take down some comments, but it's all part of the fun.
Yeah, so I think an important takeaway what was already said, you have to have thick skin about it. People are going to say things that you don't like, and you just have to eat it. Another thing as far as if you're in this genre, as far as marketing goes, or really it's not just this genre, it's any genre of marketing. It's already been said, you are your brand, especially if you're self-publishing, and with this day in social media. So your brand shouldn't be, I'm a douchebag to people online, because nobody's going to want to support you. You have to be nice to everybody, including the people who are not nice to you, and probably talking shit behind your back, because if you're not, if you do one nice thing for somebody, most people probably won't talk about it. But if I'm rude to you online one time, you're going to tell every one of your friends that John Lynch is an asshole. And then they don't know if you're an asshole or not. They just know that you told them that they were. And there's, you know, in today's publishing world, there are so many authors out there writing so many good books that all it takes is for you to have one bad day and say one thing online and you were kind of mean to somebody, and you've just torched your whole career, because there's going to be hundreds of people who are like, you know what, I heard this about this person, I don't know if it's true, but there's plenty of other books to read, I don't want to support them. So if you know, have thick skin, handle the criticism, and just take it, vent to your friends, not in a public space, because you do have to be on social media. So social media is not the place for you to vent about the things that bother you. That's for your friends, because you're your own brand.
Yeah,
Business tool.
It is, yeah, like, if you want to have like a personal page and just keep that to your friends, hide that, and then have a professional page. Like, I don't post personal stuff on my social media anymore. I just want it to be about either books that, my stuff, or other people's books that I like, or talking about horror. The most personal stuff, I'll be like, here's a picture of my dog, it's the dog fool. You know? But I just wanted to say one quick thing to add to this, about not worrying about offending people or you know, upsetting people, because you're not going to be able to please everyone. And I have a great example. My book, They All Died Screaming, part of the plot is that there's a guy who has a pig farm, but he's raising veal, and the veal is young women that he does the same cruel things that people actually do to raise veal, pinning them to the ground so they can't move, giving them low iron diets, things like that to keep them meat tender. So this guy is brutalizing these young women. So I saw two different reviews. One was from a woman who was completely and utterly offended by the book because it's a man doing horrible things to women, it's misogynistic, and so forth. And then there was a guy who wrote a review saying that he hated it because it was misandrist, which is the opposite of misogyny. He said it was misandrist because all the men were portrayed as awful men that did horrible things to women. So it's just like, you can't please everybody. Like, even that, it's like they're both people complaining about the complete opposite thing. So just write what you feel the story calls for.
Yeah, and one thing just about what John said, like, if you sum it up in one way, it's like, you have to be perfect online. You have to be perfect. Because we've seen publishers close overnight. We've been at conventions like this. Publishers gone in a few hours.
Yeah.
A bunch of people there who had books from the publisher. Gone. That's what happens nowadays.
Yeah.
So,
Cancel culture is a scary thing.
Well, piggybacking off of what you just said, Aaron, do you guys prefer self-publishing or traditional publishing and why?
Well, I've done both. And only recently, with his help, have I started putting on stuff myself. But that was really just a financial decision. Once I had enough bigger enough following, I was like, okay, I can just kind of do this myself and make more money. But I have worked with publishers. I just did a book recently with Cemetery Dance, and I've worked with Grindhouse Press and several other ones. And there are benefits to it, and then there are drawbacks to it. So, you know, a good publisher is going to invest money in promoting your book, and they're going to have your books at other conventions that you're not at. They're going to be pushing you. But then there are a lot of other publishers who don't do jack squat for their writers, and they pay for a cover and an editor. Sometimes the editor's not even that good. And then they put out the book, and then for the remainder of your contract, they're taking 50% of the sales. You know, so you just have to research the publisher that you're working for, talk to other writers who have worked with the publisher to find out if they're worthy of getting your book.
yeah, I agree. There are good publishers, like Chris mentioned Grindhouse. We personally know C.B. Hunt goes above and beyond
She does.
as an author, right? So it makes sense that Carrie would go above and beyond for the authors. Then there are nightmare publishers, people that you will regret that you ever associated with. And
We're not gonna name names.
Right, we're not gonna name names. But, well, the thing is with me, most of anything I've done with publishers is on a smaller scale, like a story here or there. I don't want to commit a major IP to a publisher. I want that to be my IP. I want to own everything for it and do all the marketing and everything. Just because that's kind of like the role that I evolved into. I was just learning, how do I format the book? How do I insert illustrations? How do I, get someone to do a cover? Then I figured out how to do the dimensions of my cover. So I took the artwork and placed it, and because you could do all that self-publish, and you could if you don't know how to do that, you could pay small fees for people to do it for you, right? Like I could pay this guy $50 to format my book, and then someone $100 to make my cover, right? But then I get the full royalty from that for the life of the product. Or I could give it to a publisher who, they're going to give me a cover and a contract and editing, right? I don't have to pay for that stuff, but they're taking more. So it's like, are you going to bet on yourself, or are you going to take the hand of the publisher? And I mean, for different people, different things work. If you're got 3 kids at home, you know what I mean, and you're trying to write, and you got a few hours to do it, maybe you don't have time to do all this shit that we learned, right? But if you have the spare time and you can learn those things, sure, there's a bit of a learning curve, but I truly think, it's the way to go today. If you look at music, right, everyone's building their own brands. All these middlemen that are the leeches of the artistic scene, they're sucking the blood. I talked to him about making movies and how much they take from, the artists there, and it's kind of sickening sometimes. So I would say self-publish if you can. You can learn how to do it. But I'm not against publishers if you find one that works for you,
Yeah, nothing to add to that. Pretty much what they said. From the movie standpoint, distributors, let's just say that we're self-distributing our next movie. So yeah, let's just take that.
For me, I've published with publishers, smaller indie scale, but they were decent size within the community. One of them was the publisher that folded at the event. I have had a short story placed with them. But for me, I would say self-publishing is the way to go. I'm not opposed to publishing with a publisher, but like it's already been mentioned, they're taking a huge cut of it. You might not get a good editor. You don't have complete freedom of everything, because they're going to choose the marketing plan for it, which is usually, if it's a smaller publisher, it's probably not much of any marketing plan except for hoping that you're going to be on social media promoting it yourself all the time. Although some publishers will be picking that up too. Just that goes in with making sure you know who you're working with ahead of time. But for me, I like the total creative control over it. I choose my cover artist, I choose my editor, I choose the content in my book. If nobody's going to tell me you can't put that in your book, because I'm going to put it in there if I want to, and I'm not going to choose that cover if I don't want it. I don't have, you get 3 different covers that one artist selected by your publisher's been like, these are the variations. It's me completely choosing what I want, and that's what I like. Is it's like what Aaron said, betting on yourself. I submitted my book to one publisher, The Warrior Treat, and it got rejected. And then I decided to self-publish it, and that's the book that everybody knows me for, the one that got rejected by a publisher. So for me, self-publishing is the way to go.
And do you guys write full-time for a living? And if so, what would you tell an aspiring author?
I do write full-time, make a good living off of it, but it took a long time. And I had to, work jobs that I did not care about, because if I had worked a job that I was really passionate about, I wouldn't have the energy for the writing. I'm not the first writer to say this. Charles Bukowski famously said this, that it's important for a writer to have a shit job they don't get to care about at all, because then they're not exerting mental and emotional energy towards it. Not saying you have to give up your good job to be a writer, but it's just a funny thing. But no, the best advice I can give you is never give up. There are going to be people who tell you it's never going to happen, and people who will be like, well, maybe you'll get all those sales, but you got to, you think seriously about life, and go for that boring job you hate because you'll make more money. Don't listen to those people, okay? It took me a long time to get to where I am. It didn't just happen overnight. It took, decades of hard work. Even outside of publishing and everything, just to become a good writer takes time. You have to work at it and practice and research and read, but just never give up. And if someone tells you you can't do it, get the person out of your life. I don't care if they're your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, whatever they are. If someone doesn't believe in you, doesn't support your dream, they're not the person you should do it. You just never, ever give up.
Absolutely, I agree too. And yes, I do write full time. I feel very fortunate to be able to do that because, as I stated earlier, I never believed that was a possibility. It took other people to make me realize that actually. I wasn't even sure I wanted to publish, and my wife kind of nudged me to do it, like, oh, just try it. She got like a book, a print book, and pushed me to do it. But yeah, I think definitely never give up because you don't know where it can take you. Me and you and me, right? We go and eat lunch sometimes on a weekday because we have an alternate business that we publish through sometimes, so we take care of things for that. But and we'll just be sitting there like, dude, can you believe we're like fucking doing this? Like, we're just sitting here, and this is what we do for a living. Like, we do not take it for granted at all. Every day I wake up and I think about what my life was like before I was able to start doing this, and that the worst days on the internet when people are slandering your name and saying all these fucked up things about you that aren't real. I don't give a fuck about that because, having this opportunity, it's just, I never thought it would happen. And so I'm saying, if we did it, like there are people in this room that if this is what you want to do, you have a chance, so do it.
But go whole hog. Don't half-ass it because then you're not going to really, get anywhere. You have to give it everything. And that old expression, jack of all trades is a master of none. I think that's absolutely true. If you're serious about writing, you can't be like, oh, I'm going to write, I'm going to be in a band, and I'm going to do all these other things. And it's like, put all your creative energy into one place, particularly if you have another full-time job or something. You're going to be scattering yourself too much. You need to just focus on the thing that's most important.
Well, yeah, dude, and I had a job that was like in your headspace. Like, you have jobs where like, I used to work at a truck stop, right? I don't really have to think for that. I'm just using my body, moving stuff. So my head is free to think about stories and shit like that. But I was working a very complex job with like, all these phone calls and meetings. It's horrible. And that was the worst thing was them taking the creativity. I couldn't do it. So like, yeah, I would have to get out of work after like an 8-hour day and spend like 5 hours, figure out how to format a fucking book, and I'm about ready to like throw the laptop. Like I'm so pissed off because like I'm not that great with technology, but I'm trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? So yeah, you're gonna have moments where like you're so pissed, but it is worth it if you love it and you get there,
And there is, I'm a nurse, I do nursing part-time and then bartending part-time. Like I said, I dropped down my nursing hours because it does take so much mental headspace. Then I do mental health nursing, you take a lot of that shit home with you. But dropping down my hours and kind of supplementing with bartending has been good. But like they said too, it's like you really have to like just force yourself to write every day, or not every day, as often as you possibly can. You have to like set alarms on your phone and create a schedule. You really just have to keep going. And then as you start getting stuff on paper, it motivates you even more. You want to keep going and going and going. So if there are people in the room that do want to write, like it just recommends going for it. You can't care what anyone else says. You can't get in your own head. You can't be like, oh, no one's going to like this. That's not true. You're gonna find your audience no matter what it is, and everyone has a story to tell. And you just got to do it. Just no fucks given. Just write it. Have some close friends look at it. Just do it. It's fun.
I'm not a full-time writer either. I have a day job that I work like anywhere from 64 to 70 hours a week at my day job. For me, my writing is all done. Because I want to do it, and this is something that I want to do as much as I can for as long as I can, I take my laptop and it sits in my car at work, and when I go on my lunch break, I go to my car, I have a little plastic desk that connects to my steering wheel, and I sit in my car for 30 to 45 minutes writing on my lunch breaks during the day, because that's when I have time to write. I don't have other time because I also have a wife and 3 kids, So on my days off that I do get from work, I'm with them. So, if they go to bed and I'm still up when they go to bed, I'll write then, but the bulk of my writing is done, on my lunch breaks at work in my car. Because it is something that I do wish that I could do full time. So that's how I find the time to be able to make that happen.
Well, if you bought a steering wheel table, you're on your way, dude. That's dedication. That's fucking dedication, dude. So that you have the attitude to do it, dude. Like that's fucking. I applaud you for that, dude.
Do you guys experience writer's block, and if so, how do you overcome that?
Yeah, I think all writers do. I churn out a lot of products, and so does he. Like, we write a lot, but yeah, there's gonna be times where when you can't, when you're like, okay, I finished this book and now I got another one. Need to come up with another one, or you'll be stuck writing something you're already working on, and you just need to figure out what you want to do with it. But when I have complete writer's block, when I was just like, don't have any new stories to write, the best thing for me is just to read, because it just gets me thinking about things and gets me into the writing mindset. And one trick that I've learned is, like, I'll go to a bookstore and I'll just open the book, just like in the middle of it, and just read a couple of pages and then just put it away and be like, okay, what would I do with that story? Just that little, in the middle of the book, not reading the back of anything, just be like, okay, these two characters talking, they go to this car, and it's like, what would I do with that? Or I'll see something, like, I'll watch a movie sometimes and I'll think, oh, this is really good, and then the movie just like halfway through, it just shits the bed and it's just not good. I'm like, I would have done this and this and this with that story. I'm like, then do it, There you go.
Yeah, I think I feel pretty fortunate because I have a long list of ideas, like things I want to write and get to. But that's not to say that, like you said, like when you're in a certain story, you may get to a point where you're like, oh, what's going on here? You may finish a book. Like my latest book, I finished that and then I went back and I think I added like 30,000 words. Like it grew substantially, like whole sections that weren't there before. So so you might not see it all on the initial run, and you'll have to like backtrack, and like as you get to the end of the story, you'd be like, oh man, it'd be great if these things happened too. It would make A, B, and C much more significant. And so, yeah, but I don't really have a solution for writer's block, I guess. I'm not sure, like, I eventually just like force myself. I'm just like, just fucking do it. Like, even if you don't like it, like, even if I don't particularly like this part, I can at least keep the story moving and come back and like.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of times I'll write 3,000 words one day, and then the next day or two I'll look at it and be like, this is garbage, so let's delete the whole thing. But at least I was still doing something. You're still practicing. You're still practicing the art itself. Even if I've written stuff where there'll be 30,000 words into a manuscript, into a story, and then I'll suddenly realize that I just don't like it. And if I don't like it, if I'm writing it, if I just, then I don't think people are going to enjoy reading it either. So, but you're still doing it. You're still being productive, even if you don't end up with a final product.
You have a folder on your desktop titled
abortions.
Yes.
Yeah. I do. Yeah, it's like where I have like these books that I started, but then I just didn't finish them because I didn't think it was good. It actually is titled Abortion. Thanks for bringing it up.
I don't get writer's block, but my brain is like insanely active at all times. So I have like my next, I'm working on my third novel now, but I have like my next draft that I'm planning. I also have like 3 more screenplays I want to do. It's a mess. But one place I drew a lot of inspiration from as a kid is like I got really into like folklore, mythology, and cryptozoology, and the animal kingdom itself. And there's so many fascinating stories and things that exist in the animal world and like in old folklore and mythology that are fascinating. So even if you get writer's block, just taking through like different cultures and their mythologies and folklores, there's so many really bizarre creatures and stories and magic that exist that like I'm surprised there hasn't been a lot of film adaptations of these things. But there's a lot of really cool stuff in there to dig around. Now obviously the animal kingdom itself, just go look at like deep sea creatures and social insects. It's just absolutely fascinating and all kinds of cool shit you can concoct from that.
For me, writer's block usually for me comes in the form of what am I going to do next. I had a list of like 10 books that I wanted to write, just ideas for them, but I wrote it down on paper and then I washed it. So those are all gone because my brain is like Swiss cheese at times. I can't remember things easily. As far as the physical act of writing, I think it was Brian Keene had posted this in his newsletter, and at the time I had read it, and I was having trouble kind of like picking up writing. Like I would sit at the computer, I would stare, and I'm like, what am I going to write next? Like in the middle of a book. And he had said something to the effect of like he would leave off in the middle of a scene, maybe even the middle of a sentence, because he would have to come back and finish that to move on to the next thing. So you never know. You don't have I'm a pantser mostly for my books. I'll do a very loose plot, and then I'll kind of connect on the way as we're going. So for me, if I leave off in the middle of the scene and I just don't finish it, or I don't even finish the sentence sometimes, I have to pick up and finish that, and my mind is already moving now as I'm finishing what I was doing the last time I sat at the keyboard. And that's the only thing that I've really found for me that kind of helped to keep going with the next thing, so that I'm not just staring at a screen, looking at the cursor, blinking at me.
Now, I think this is our last question that we have time for. Have any of you guys ever lost friendships or opportunities because of the type of content you normally write about?
Well, not friendships, no, but sometimes with opportunities, like when I was saying earlier, 20-something years ago, submitting stories and like having to mail it, I got a rejection letter, because they would mail it to you, and I saved it. I still have it because it made me laugh so much. Because you have to have a tough skin. You have to be like not break down and cry because you get your story rejected. But what they said in the rejection was great, because they were like, we think you're a fine writer, you really know the craft, but this story is so bloody and twisted and demented that we got really upset reading it, and like we wanted to vomit, like all this. That's really what it says. And I was like, oh, awesome. So sometimes you will lose an opportunity because your vision is too much, or it just isn't right for that particular publisher. And that's fine, but just because one publisher doesn't want it, kind of like what Aaron was saying, it's just not for them, but it might certainly be for the next one. So, remember when a publisher rejects you, it's one person's opinion, it's one editor who didn't like it, one person. So it doesn't mean you should give up.
Yeah, my friends are all like weirdos, so none of them care. And then I would say I probably lost the keys to professional society. Only because I didn't use it. I was stupid enough to not use a pen name.
I was just going to say,
if I could go back and use a pen name, I might do that. But no, this is my real name, so I assume if I applied for a job, if everything fell through, I might have some interesting
because
questions.
that's something you have to remember if you decide to write extreme splatterpunk, is it's kind of like doing porn. Splatterpunk is forever. Next is forever. Once you've done it, like people will always be able to find it. So you have to keep that in mind. You can always write under a pen name if you want to. But like for me, I was like, no, I've worked my whole life for this. I want it to be my name. I want everyone who saw that, everyone who thought, oh, he'll never make it. I want to be like, nah, see? I want you to see my books when you're walking around. I want you to see them online because I fucking did it. So
I was just more like, if somebody calls me by a different name, I might not look. So that was why I did it.
But for the movie end of things, so I haven't had this happen with books yet. Like we make queer horror, we're a queer film collective. Like all of us are gay. Films are very fucking gay. But like it's when you're submitting films, it's weird because like we're too gay for the horror genre, but we're too gory and gross for the LGBTQ arena. So we've gotten a lot of rejections from those arenas. So we kind of just exist in this weird interim, which is kind of fun. But I honestly don't give a fuck. I love what we do. So I mean, just gotta do what you do. I've never lost any friends with this stuff. Shit, just like kind of opportunities, I guess. But whatever. I love it.
I wouldn't say that I've lost any friends or opportunities from it, just because if somebody they're not your friend. If they're gonna look at your book and say, I can't associate with you because you wrote that person wasn't your friend to begin with. And then as far as opportunities, I would say it's not a lost opportunity to me because kind of like Chris had said, it's just not for that publisher. So that's not an opportunity for me to begin with. If that publisher doesn't publish the type of books that I write, that was never an opportunity for me to begin with. So I wouldn't say that I've lost opportunities anyway. And then because I am kind of all in on self-publishing, I'm going to write and publish whatever I want anyway. So
do you guys want to let everyone know where they can find you on socials?
Yeah, just type in my name, Substack, TikTok, Instagram. And you can always go to my website, trianahorror.com. And you can get, signed books and everything there.
Mostly Amazon, but my site is AB Horror. That's where like my merch and design stuff is. And I'm also on Substack. I'm on most social media platforms too.
I do have a website. We haven't gone live yet. It'll be on April 15th. But Instagram is probably the best way to find me. It's just Brandon_Paris_Sanchez. I have like a little bookmark out there. I was like my social stuff on.
JohnLynchBooks.com. It's going to be the easiest way. It's going to link to all my socials or everywhere else that you can find me, including my website. We're all, the shop on my website, just because there's a million John Lynches. I'm the 5th just in my family alone. So if you Google me, it's probably not going to pop up, or it might be somebody else. So, JohnLynchBooks.com, and then it'll take you wherever you want to find me, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, my newsletter, Amazon.
Does anybody have any questions before they head out?
Nothing?
Chill out, guys.
I have a question. So I'm looking to self-publish eventually, and I'm writing my first book. And I'm not necessarily a horror yet into the type of book I'm writing. I'm not really sure what it falls under quite yet. Just kind of going with it. But my question is, what is there like a self-publishing platform? Like what platform do you use? Because I haven't even looked at how.
So
And not able to find how you.
You can, I would recommend, if you want to self-publish, you can go to Amazon, right? There's, the site is KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP. They have templates that you can download, right? Just for like MS Word, like if you use Word. And you can insert your chapters into those templates and kind of build the book yourself that way. But yeah, I mean, Kindle Direct Publishing is going to be probably the best way. Some people will go with, there's other like Draft to Digital, for example, or Ingram Spark. You can put your book with them and they will funnel it to these websites, but they're taking a cut. So Amazon's taking their cut, now you have another person taking a cut. So I would directly upload to Barnes & Noble. You can do that yourself. You could directly upload to Amazon. Like it makes a little more work for you, but there's not a middleman taking a cut for those distributions, because Amazon's the big one anyway. That's the one that you're going to get on higher lists, and that's the most important one, really.
I have a second question to that. So if I went through Barnes and Noble, how would I control? I know you guys were saying the internet, but if you're not going through a publisher, and you're not really having followers, like how do you get the word out there?
How do you get into the store? Is that what you said?
Yeah, like how do you get the word out there?
It's very hard work. Honestly, like,
Takes a while.
yeah, like, I mean, you've been in a few stores, I'm in some stores. The thing is, I'm completely self-published, so if that's what you're planning on doing, like, you'll have to create, there will have to be a organic buzz about your book where people are like, where is this fucking book? You know what I mean? That's what happened with Playground, thankfully. Like, people were like, where is this? They were forced to kind of order it into the store, you know what I mean? But, yeah, I mean, you could use Ingram Spark too, right? Have you used it for that?
You could.
Because they'll deliver to brick and mortar too. But again, then it's like, it's a bit of a, they're taking some cut too there, so, but.
So what you should do too is like if there are, just say with movies too, there are book reviewers that you see on TikTok or Instagram that you do like, you think they like your book, you just make it like a little care package, like get like a paperback of the book, send it to them, see if they'll review it. So if they have a lot of followers and they like your book and review it, like they'll, because we do that with movies too, DVDs and stuff to kind of get them to reviews and.
Yeah, there's something called advanced reader copies. They're like, before your book comes out, typically you'll get advanced copies. And someone like Am, right, like she has a big influence, people respect her, opinions on books and stuff. So you may send somebody like her an advanced copy, she can give her honest opinion on it. And then, hopefully you get some people that are interested in her content. And that's kind of what you do. Maybe you get 20 of those, you pick out, that's how you do it organically and naturally, where you can still put work into building.
Yeah, and yeah, just make sure that you're very polite about it. Ask the reviewer if they're interested, and don't get pissy if they end up not liking the book, just accept it and move on. But yeah, the social media is a big thing. Make sure you participate in the horror community. Not that you're always just promoting your own stuff. Tell people about books that you like. Build your own following online, just talking about horror books, horror movies, or whatever it is you like. I know you said your book may not necessarily be horror, but whatever it is, even if it's just books in general or whatever. Yeah, just try to involve yourself in the community, and then people will know you're ready and be interested if you publish something. Yeah, sure. And then best of luck. Yeah.
We could do it, you can.
Especially, he's like one of my best friends. I do.
Well, thank you all so much for coming. They'll be out there at the bill stations if you want to ask them anything else, but
Real quick though, we got to thank Pam for coming in here. If you haven't followed her on TikTok, what's your handle again? I'm not gonna say it this time.
Book bitch. Book bitch on TikTok. If you
I
want
don't know why they
great.
keep calling me that.
Well, thank you though, guys. We really appreciate you guys being here.
Okay, thanks so much. If you have any more questions, just feel free to come by our tables and ask